Good evening, everybody. Okay, guys. This evening we're going to do just a quick discussion around the stick shift. Now, stick shift is an acronym from the United States of America. We call it a gear lever in the UK. We talk English in the UK, and we call it a gear lever. In the United States, they don't talk such good English, and they normally have to come up with acronyms. So stick shift is a US thing. It's like trafficator. When you talk to Nigerian people, they will tell you that they use the trafficator, which is the signal. The signaling mechanism is called a trafficator. So we have different things from different countries, and sometimes it's nice to use them just to widen our knowledge. I'm just going to give you a brief overview first so that everybody can understand what we're talking about. So first of all, a manual gearbox is where you've got a gear lever in the car and you'll be using a clutch to change the gears. And that basically is the same in all vehicles that are sold today as manual gearbox vehicles and that are on the road as manual gearbox vehicles. Now, the greater majority of cars, because of the age of the cars, because when you sell a car 5 years back, then that time it was still very much a manual gearbox that was prominent. But of late, last year, the number of automatic cars sold, the cars with automatic gearboxes, was 68.7% of all cars sold in the United Kingdom had automatic gearboxes, and that included the electric cars, because electric cars are automatic. So electric, hybrid, and normal automatic gearboxes are obviously automatic. So those three come together, and that was nearly 3/4. You can say nearly 3/4 of the cars sold in 2024 were automatic gearboxes. Now, by the year 2020, manual gearboxes are not allowed to be sold anymore. 2030, sorry, by the year 2030, only automatic gearboxes will be available because they want everything to be electric. And there are no electric manual gearbox cars that I'm aware of. Please correct me if I'm wrong. If anybody knows I'm wrong, I'd love you to show me right now. Tell me I'm wrong. Just come on, guys. Who says I'm wrong? Go in the chat there and tell me I'm wrong. Please, I really would like to know that. But as far as I know, there are no electric cars that operate with a manual gearbox. So all electric cars are automatic. Hybrid cars are automatic. I don't know of any hybrid cars that are manual. Now, this is really interesting, okay? There's some really interesting statistics around these automatic and manual gearboxes. Let me just get this up. I just want to get this up quickly. During last year, the number of automatic driving tests that were taken increased substantially. So let me tell you what the difference is. Now this is the decision you have to make as a driver. Okay, am I going to be using an automatic gearbox car in the future, or am I going to be using a manual gearbox car in the future? Now, if the number of automatic gearbox cars sold last year is 70% of all new cars were automatic, then invariably the chances of you ending up in an automatic in the future are getting greater and greater and substantially increasing as a result of electric and hybrid cars. Now, there's some really interesting statistics around this. One of the things that was really interesting that I researched, okay, in 2000, now we're going back to 2021. Now we are 2 years further than 2000. We're actually in the third year further than 2021 because we're in 24. 62% in 2021, 62% of cars sold were automatics. And only 38% were manual. Now, this year, I believe we will be more than 75% of cars sold this year will be automatic cars. There are 268 versions of cars sold in the UK at the moment. And only 6 versions of those cars currently are available in manual. All the rest are only automatic cars. So Jaguar, Ford is still selling manual cars. Jaguar, obviously Tesla, Toyota, all these cars now are going over onto only automatics. So certain versions of cars are only available in automatic. They don't have manual gearboxes anymore. So there has to be a real compelling reason for you to learn in a manual gearbox. Now, my experience, this is my experience as a driving instructor. If somebody comes to me and they say, what is the average number of hours I would be reasonably comfortable with as an average person that I will need to pass my driving test if I was doing manual compared to automatic? And the difference is between 20 and 30% you would need between 20 and 30% more lessons in a manual car than you would need in an automatic car. So automatics are easier for you to pass your driving tests. And honestly, there isn't a country in the world where you can't drive automatic. In the USA, more than 90% of the cars sold in the United States of America, including trucks and LGVs, and even their biggest haulage trucks nowadays are automatics. They don't have many manual gearboxes anymore in the United States. And in a certain way, technologically, the United States is quite a bit more advanced than us. But in the UK, we've been slow in adopting the automatic gearbox, moving from the manual to the automatic gearbox. Okay? So those are the basic facts. So let's just go back to this. When you are making the decision as to whether you should have automatic or manual lessons, your very first consideration is, how dexterous is it? How dexterous am I? How easily do I do sport? That is really the question. That is what dexterity is about. So when you do that, make that decision, that would be my first decision. How dexterous am I? The second decision would obviously be, and this might override your first decision, is do I have to be able to drive a manual car? And if the answer to that is yes, my question would be, why don't I actually do an automatic lesson and then do a manual license later if I need it? That's always a possibility. It doesn't mean that because you do an automatic driving license, or you go and do automatic and you do automatic driving license, that you can't go back and do a manual driving license later when you've got more experience. And that conversion is not difficult, because then you can go out with your friends, you can practice in a manual, okay, and then you can go and get your manual driving license. Okay, the other consideration is that if you get an automatic license, you can't drive a manual car. You're not allowed to drive a manual car. So you have to be driving an automatic car when you go out on the road. So automatic license stops you from driving a manual. But if you get a manual license, which is going to cost you more and is less likely for you to drive in future, it's going to cost you more to get the manual license. But if you want to go into a cheaper car market at the moment, you want to have a cheaper car market, then there is a consideration to do manual, because as we move along towards fully automatic and electric cars, the more the manual cars, the price of the manual cars will go down. And there's only one other consideration why you would want to drive a manual. And that is really real consideration nowadays, would be because you have more control over a manual than you do over an automatic. But that's also not that true anymore. A lot of automatic cars have got paddle gearboxes, so you can actually electronically shift. You can put it in electronic control. You put the gearbox into electronic control, and then you shift the gearbox. You can actually then shift the gearbox manually. So you don't need to be in full automatic. And most of the automatic gearboxes nowadays have up to 7 or 8 gears, which makes it like a cone drive, which is much more efficient. Now, when it comes to petrol efficiency, in the old days when I was growing up in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, I was growing up in the 70s. I started driving in the 60s. When I was growing up, it was the reason you didn't use automatic is because it was between 15 and 20% more expensive in fuel efficiency because it was a hydrostatic gearbox. But the current gearboxes are not hydrostatic anymore. They are fully mechanical belt drive gearboxes mostly. So they are much more efficient. And they're actually, a lot of the automatic gearboxes are now more efficient than what manual gearboxes are, because the way they are designed has made them much more efficient. So when you were still driving hydrostatic gearboxes tended to be less efficient, so you used more fuel. But as the cars are developing, the modern gearboxes, I mean, the Range Rovers are getting 50 to 60 miles a gallon, and they're fully automatic. And they're those massive big cars. So they are doing really, really well. So nowadays, that is not a consideration anymore. Price, yeah. Manual gearboxes tend to be cheaper than automatics, but not by much. It's not really as big as it used to be. There used to be about a £2,000 or £3,000 difference in price on a manual and automatic gearbox of the same version of the car. But the problem today is you're going to find, like Volvo, for instance, they don't do manual gearboxes anymore. They just, all their cars are automatic gearboxes. So the future is definitely automatic. There's no doubt about it. If you wanted more control, you buy a car that you can buy an automatic gearbox, which has the Triptronic gearboxes, where you can just change the gears by flipping the levers on the steering wheel or on the actual lever itself. A lot of gearboxes are like that. A lot of automatic cars are like that. You don't use a clutch to change the gearbox. It's electronically clutched. It's got a double electronic clutch, and you can actually control the gears with levers on your steering wheel. So it's not really, when people say, oh, you've got more control, well, not really anymore. You're going to have as much, if not more, control, because the racing cars are not manual gearboxes anymore. Nobody, Ferrari, Porsche, BMW, Mercedes, all of those people are racing in automatic flip control gearboxes. They're not racing in manual gearboxes anymore. That's the past. That's when I grew up. We used to race in manual gearboxes, but you don't do that anymore. And the NASCAR 500 in the US has been fully automatic for years. They don't do manual gearboxes anymore either, because you don't lose power. You don't lose so much power in the changing of gears. You can maintain power now in the when you change gears, which you couldn't in the past. These are just interesting questions. Okay, I'm just going to stop there for a while. So, is there anything I've covered that needs to be that has got a question in your mind you'd like me to answer?
Yes, because there's is it better to learn to drive in a manual or automatic vehicle?
Well, I think you have to ask, it's the questions you have to ask yourself. The questions are really simple. The questions are, if you want to save money, and money is a consideration in your learning to drive, then you need to be thinking about an automatic gearbox. If your big consideration is you have to be able to drive a manual gearbox when you get your driving license, then you have to go into a manual. But you need to weigh up these things. But the future is automatic. So if you want to save money and you're comfortable you don't have a compelling reason to drive a manual right now, then you should go with automatic, because automatic is easier, and it's going to be substantially cheaper than getting a manual license, and easier than getting a manual license. Getting a manual license can be quite difficult for some people, and it depends on your dexterity as well. My daughter 3 years ago, she asked me the same question, do I have to learn in a manual? And at the time, I didn't even have an automatic to teach her. And I said, no, you can do automatic. And she then went and did an automatic license, and she's now traveled the world, all over the world. She's been in Africa, she's been in Morocco, Africa, she's been in South Africa, she's been all over Croatia and everywhere, and she's hired cars, and she's been using her automatic license and driving automatic cars. She's never looked back. She's got an automatic license, and she's a good test of that because she does a lot of traveling. I mean, this last weekend, they went away, I think it was to Kazakhstan or somewhere for a couple of days. And they were driving there, and she was driving in an automatic. So the days of the manual are really limited at this stage of the game. Falashad, you have a question. I'm going to open the mic for you, Falashad.
Yeah, good evening.
Good
I
evening.
just want to ask a question. Okay, if you're doing automatic, is it possible if you apply for like, you know, there are some company that they said if you don't have full license, you're not going to be employed?
No, automatic is a full license. So I would, if somebody says to you, you have to have a full license, I would say to them, I have a full automatic license. That is regarded as a full license. If they specified you have to have a manual license, I would ask them why. Why do you have to have a manual license? Because quite honestly, most of the cars today are automatic. And if they are providing you a car and buying you a car, then it should be an automatic. And most of the companies now, you can actually say, look, I want an automatic car. So a full license, an automatic license is not a half license, it's a full license, as much as the manual is. The only difference is that with the automatic license, you can only drive automatic cars. But I can't see that any company today would force you into a manual car, because that doesn't make sense from a company's point of view. Because the depreciation value of a manual car will be much higher than the depreciation value of an automatic car, because automatic is becoming the future.
Okay. Again, sorry, sir. Again, why is it very compulsory that is somebody that have full license that have to be in the car with you while you're driving, especially with the manual, with the people that are learning how to drive?
No, if you're learning to drive, somebody with a license has to be in the car with you. But you could be learning, you could have an automatic license, and then you could be learning to drive a manual. Then you need somebody in the car with you, because you're learning to drive a manual. But if you have a full license, you can drive an automatic alone. You don't need to have other people in the car with you. Does that make sense? Did I answer your question?
That's fine.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So if you decide, look, I want to go for automatic license, and you go and you get your automatic license, and then some company turns around and says, no, we'd like you to have a manual license, please. You remember, you are going to say to them, oh, you have a full license. An automatic is a full license. It's not a half license. It's a full license. It's regarded as a full license. Only you passed on an automatic vehicle. So you would say to them, okay, well, then I will need to convert to manual, but is that really necessary? Because I can't see from a company's point of view, if a company is buying cars right now, I would be staying away from manual cars if I was buying cars. And we are actually buying automatics for our instructors now. Because last year alone, listen to this, this is quite scary. Last year alone, the number of automatic driving tests taken increased by 260%. 260% more automatic licenses were given out than the previous year. In 1 year, 260%. And that's because everything is going automatic. It just doesn't make sense anymore to go manual.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Falashad. Good question. All right. Thank you so much. Okay.
Sorry, Chris, there's another question. What's the insurance process on manual or automatic?
Okay,
Is it
when it comes to insurance, it depends very much on where you're getting your insurance from. So insurance is more, how can I say, the price of insurance is more weighted by the number of years that you've had your license. And it doesn't really make much difference whether you're driving manual or automatic. Although some companies do regard automatic drivers safer drivers than manual drivers, because they tend to have less accidents. Now, that it might be because it's easier to control an automatic car, and automatic drivers are not trying to be petrol heads. That might be the reasons. But especially in young drivers, they tend to look differently at people who have manual cars or go for manual cars than with automatic. But there are a lot of factors involved in that. You just have to search. But generally, automatic licensed drivers tend to get better prices in insurance than manual driving licenses at the moment. It depends on what car you buy. You might have a manual license and then buy an automatic car. So those are also factors that will come into play. And how long have you had? How old are you? If you're like 17 and 1 month old, you're driving, you're probably going to end up with a black box to make your insurance payable. And then I would stick to an automatic. Look, one of the big advantages of automatic licenses are they are just so much easier in traffic. I mean, I was on the road today coming back from a driving test center, and normally it takes me from that driving test center to my home. It's between 15 and 17 minutes drive. Today it was 37 minutes. A lot more stop starting, slow traffic because of the Easter break. I think that's us done then this evening, guys. If nobody's got any questions, any general questions about what's going on in the industry, or anybody want clarity on anything, you can put up your hand. I'll answer any general questions you have. Thank you.
Yes, we have another question. Are manual cars still being made?
There are still, you can still buy some. I think I saw out of 298 models in the UK, less than 60 of those models are available in manual. But there are no cars anymore that are only available in manual. In the previous years, up to about 2017, 2018, you got ranges of cars or types of cars which were only available in manual. Now all cars are available on automatic, and they're very limited cars that are available in manual. If you wanted a manual Range Rover, I don't even know if you could buy it anymore. 4 years ago, you had to order specifically a manual car, and they'll put one together for you. But they had gearbox problems because they weren't being tested properly. It was just, okay, you want one, we'll charge you 3 times as much and we'll give you one. But manual cars mostly are not available anymore. In a lot of models, sorry, I want to say in a lot of models. Because if you think about it, the cars that are being bought at the moment are either electric. A lot of cars are electric now, or there's lots of ranges of cars that are electric. Volvo is making a lot of electric cars, electric models. And then you've obviously got Tesla and BMW, GM, General Motors, Ford, Toyota. All these cars are making, and Honda, all these other cars, they're making hybrids. So a lot of cars are hybrid nowadays as well. And there are a lot of hybrids out there. And so if a car is available as a hybrid, if you go manual, you've got to have all that guts out that's hybrid. So the electric side falls away, and you end up with a petrol engine or a diesel engine driving the car. Now, the Toyota Cross I was talking about, the engine, the power from the engine is inadequate because it is supported by the electric side of the car. If you were to strip out of the Toyota Cross, strip out the electrics, you would have a lot less power for the pull away and stuff like that, because the two are augmenting each other. So I don't think they offer that in manual at all.
Sorry, Chris, we've got a question from Samuel. He says he struggles with his theory test, and how can he pass it?
Well, the best thing is the best thing is to book in half an hour's tuition, one-on-one tuition with us, and let's see how we can help him. Let's find out how we can actually set up a one-on-one tuition. That will be the best way to do it. Okay. So let's do one-on-one tuition is the best way to do it, and then we can find out what it is in the theory test that he's struggling with. And that's very important, because if you can set up that one-on-one tuition, which we offer, and you can actually get one-on-one tuition, it's a good way to start with one lesson, see how that works, and then once you're comfortable, you can decide. Normally, by the time a person's had 3 or 4 lessons, we've taught them how to use the artificial intelligence platform, and then once they understand that, they don't really need that tuition anymore. So normally you start with one hour, one lesson, 1 3/4 hour lesson. You start with a 1 3/4 hour lesson. You evaluate where you're at the end of that first lesson. And then once you've done the first lesson, then you decide, okay, I want so many more. And then as you go along, you can cut in or put in more lessons or less lessons. And the thing with the artificial intelligence is that we use, the system that we use, you'll know you can pass the test. You don't have to go to the test to see if you can pass the test. If you can pass the test on our AI, you will pass the test. As simple as that. Abayomi, I see wants to register for a theory test, Abayomi. So I'm no problems with that. Let's get sign up or come and talk to us if you've got any problems. We can get that all sorted out. But I would suggest sign up for our artificial intelligence system, learn how that works. Once you've signed up for that, if you need a couple of lessons, 1 lesson or 2 lessons or more lessons, we can help you develop that so that it's easier for you to pass your theory test. Okay? All right, guys, I'm going to wrap that up now. I'm going to say Happy Easter to all of you. Have an amazing, amazing Easter. Thank you so much for attending this evening. If any of you have got any questions, then come back to us. And what I also want to tell you, you all qualify because you attend the webinars and you tell everybody about our webinars because they're really good. You all qualify to be part of our mastery, our driving test mastery courses. And you can just sign up with that by sending your information into Lariska or to Louise, or just contact our people online and they can sign you up if you attend the webinar this evening. And thank you for your fantastic questions, guys. Thank you so much. And if you need help, just give us a call. Thank you so much, everybody. Good night.